And it goes without saying that putting up an event like this would not be possible without the help of very generous funders and sponsors who are supporting us, but also all of you in all of our work. Everything that we do in the movement is being funded at some point. So thank you so much to everyone who is contributing to this event. Our philanthropic sponsors for this event are Open Philanthropy, Tipping Point, Food System Innovations, the Craigslist Charitable Fund, and Affinity Impact. Thank you so much. And this is the NGOs that are supporting this event at the bronze level: Animal Charity Evaluators, Impactful Animal Advocacy, the Vegan Hacktivists, and Faunalytics. On the silver level, Compassion in World Farming and Welfare Matters. Thank you. On the gold level, World Animal Protection and We the Free. And then we have 2 platinum sponsors who we owe our very special thank you: ProVeg International and Mercy for Animals. And we will actually welcome the representative from Mercy for Animals of Indonesia, Ruli, on stage to give a few welcoming remarks on behalf of Mercy for Animals. Thank you, Ruli.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good morning. How are you people? Good? Ready? Yeah, good. Well, first of all, I would like to say thanks to organizers, to co-hosts, to the volunteers, and to make this all happen. I think this is the first time we meet together in person. I've been joining the Asia for Animal Days for last 2 years, but through the screens. So I'm really exciting to meet all of you guys here. Really exciting. And also, I would like to thank to the speakers, moderators, and delegations for being here and to bring idea, spirit, and also the collaborations thoughtfulness. And Mercy for Animal Asia is our big focus now. So we're looking forward for the collaborations and working together, finding solutions. And again, thank you for all being here and ready for learning, networking, finding solution, and make greater impact. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Ruli.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruli. And now, everyone, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you a very special person who will help mark the opening of the Asia Family Day event, who is my former boss. I've known him for over 10 years now. We are not only like colleagues, but also like friends, and I admire him a lot as well. He's helping animals not only with his planning, his work, but also directly through his rescue work. He has been rescuing hens from the farms, former farms, former farm hens, and guinea pigs, rabbits, and dogs used to be tested in laboratory. He is an amazing person, a dad, and please join me in giving a warmly welcome to the Global Animal Welfare Director from Animals Asia, and also, he's also the board president of Asia for Animal Coalition. Welcome, Mr. Dave Neale.
Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thank you very much. Lovely introduction, Thanh. And thank you to you as well. Real honor to be standing here in front of you, representing this movement, representing both Animals Asia, but also the Asia for Animals Coalition. And as Thanh says, if some of you who don't know me, then I'm the Global Animal Welfare Director for Animals Asia Foundation, but also one of the original founders of the Asia for Animals Coalition, and the Asia for Animals Coalition has come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. Thanks very much to the people which are now running the organisation. It's my job to give the inspirational speech to start this conference. No small challenge, but it's great already to hear from Thanh and from Julia and from Ruli in terms of the how this conference has come about and the hope that we have from this conference. So it took me a little while to come up with what I wanted to say here, but I'm hoping that in the next 20 minutes we will finish this conference feeling inspired and ready to go. So I've called this Progress and Hope for Farmed Animals in Asia. So what do I mean? Well, I'm going to start firstly just by I'm not going to look at the numbers, but just by the scale of the challenge that we have. Asia is home to over 75% of the world's farmed animals, 90% of farmed fish, 45% of farmed land animals. The scale of the challenge that we have is monumental. We know the problems of intensive farming. I'm sure we're going to discuss them in much more detail. We've got deforestation, we've got land use change, we've got water, overuse of water, water pollution, greenhouse gas emissions. All of us are very aware of that. All of these things we're here today in the next few days to try to come up with some ways to address these challenges. Well, there are three major challenges, as far as I see it, that we have as a collective group of people and organizations. One of the major ones is ending practices which are leading to animal suffering, changing diets towards alternative protein consumption, and balancing our food production with nature conservation. I won't have everybody on here, and I apologize right from the start, in that I put this together a few days ago, just taking off some logos from people which are on the speakers lists. I know that you guys are the ones that have the answers to these questions, much more than me. I work for an organization that mainly works on wild animal welfare issues, not so much on farmed animal issues. I know that you people in the room have the answers to this. It's my job in the next 10 to 15 minutes just to give you that inspiration to start us off in this conference. And I want to start by just looking about how far we've come. This is an article from 2015, and this is a debate that many of you have been involved in: sentience, fish sentience. 2015, the University of Queensland was still publishing articles saying fish do not feel pain. While mammals and birds possess the prerequisite neural architecture for phenomenal consciousness, it is concluded that fish lack these essential characteristics and hence do not feel pain. 8 years ago. Look at what was published just last week. Compassion in World Farming, in response to the UK government expert group recommending to the UK government that farmed fish are sentient creatures and should receive the same legal protections at the time of slaughter as other land farm animals. The debate about fish sentience has come on in leaps and bounds in the last few decades, and now is widely recognized that fish can feel pain and can suffer. This from 2015, the Norwegian Scientific Committee concluding that lobsters do not feel pain. It is unlikely that lobsters can feel pain. The committee assumes that the violent reaction of lobsters to boiling water is a reflex response, i.e. does not involve conscious perception to noxious stimuli. Let's fast forward to 2018, and the Swiss government ordering the end of the common culinary practice of throwing lobsters into boiling water whilst they're still alive, ruling that they must be knocked out before they are killed. And just 2 years ago, in the UK, an amendment to the Animal Welfare Bill, the Animal Welfare Sentience Bill, recognizing crabs, octopus, and lobsters as sentient beings in government policy decision-making. So huge progress, and that's been made because of people like you working globally on these issues to ensure that all animals are included within the definition of animal sentience. If we look way back 400 years ago, many of you will know this from the French philosopher René Descartes, the ability to reason and use language involves being able to respond in complex ways to all of the contingencies of life, something that animals clearly cannot do. And using this argument to say that any sounds that animals make do not constitute language, but are simply automatic responses to external stimuli. Let's just fast forward to the present day. Here in 2022, look who's talking now, the fishes. Cornell University, there's a whole lot of talking going on beneath the waves. Fish are far more likely to communicate with sound than generally thought, and some fish have been doing this for at least 155 million years. This on the back of research done in 2016 at the Curtin University in Perth, recorded vocalizations in fish in the coastal waters of Western Australia, identifying 7 distinct fish choruses, leading to the New Scientist, a very well-respected journal, to conclude that fish recorded singing dawn choruses on reefs just like birds. This is major progress within the animal movement, the recognition of fish as sentient creatures, and with the ability, the cognitive ability, to communicate to each other, to communicate intentionally. Proceedings of the Royal Society, just in 2018, cleaner shrimp communicate with approaching fish by clapping their claws to let the fish know they are ready to help to clean its skin and to ask the fish not to eat it. This is not just species, interspecies, individuals within species communicating. These are 2 separate species communicating to each other. One of them saying, I want to help you, will you respond in the way that you want me to respond? This is intentional communication, referential communication between shrimp, crustaceans, and fish. It's been recognized within the scientific literature. Exeter University, just this year, individual guppies risk approaching a predator to gather information and subsequently communicate this threat to the shoal. This is altruistic behavior. These are individuals within a social group which are putting themselves at risk to find out whether there is a threat within their local environment and then to return to their social group and referentially communicate that information back to their social group so that their social group can avoid a predation risk. And I've talked a lot about the fishes, talked a lot about crustaceans, but let's look at some of the land animals as well. 23 years ago, Bristol University concluded pigs are capable of assessing by observation what information another pig knows in relation to them with regards how to perform a task with a reward. This means that pigs know the information that they do have themselves or information that they don't have themselves, but they can also understand that other pigs may have information that they don't have. They can do that assessment, and then they will use that assessment to be able to receive a award for themselves. And the hens. Laurie Marino from the Kimmler Centre for Animal Advocacy published this in 2017, which was an examination of all the scientific data on chicken emotions, cognition, concluding that chickens are just as cognitively, emotionally, and socially complex as most other birds and mammals, and with reference to self-awareness, social learning, self-control. So again, huge amount of data out there now which is showing just how cognitively, emotionally, socially complex hens are. So we now have evidence for emotional capacities, cognitive abilities, and sentience throughout the hens, the pigs, the cows, the goats, the sheep, but also now the fishes, the decapod crustaceans, the cephalopods, And we're now in the territory of looking at other invertebrates, and if anybody follows the work of Lars Chitka and his work with bees, then there is a huge amount of evidence building with regards to their emotional capacity within bees. And I'm sure if we stand here in another few years' time, we will have speakers here talking about insects, the problems of insect farming, the development of insect farming throughout the world, but particularly here within Asia. And yet, we still have this problem. And yet, all of this evidence is what we all know is true. And yet, we still have this denial of minds. And this is the ability for people to use cognitive dissonance to attribute significantly fewer indicators of sentience to animals that end up on our plate. And this is our challenge, because the evidence is there. We just need to be able to communicate that in some way. But there are signs of hope coming from other quarters as well. Just look at this. The China Center for Agricultural Policy survey of this year concluded that the majority of Chinese consumers in larger cities are open to alternative proteins. 85% of respondents had eaten plant-based meat alternatives before, and the survey found that the majority of respondents were actually reducing their meat and animal product consumption. The Dutch city of Haarlem in Europe last year banning meat adverts in public, with meat being added to a list of products deemed to contribute to the climate crisis. Good Food Institute in Europe survey from 2022, finding that 50% of consumers in 4 major European countries had all reduced their meat consumption in the last 5 years. These are the reasons for hope. This is what is happening out there in the community. And back to China. 2016, the Chinese government announced that it would reduce the country's meat consumption by 50% by 2030, aiming to tackle climate change and obesity. Now, there are people far more qualified than I am that working in China to say whether the government is still committed to this. But this was a major policy announcement from the Chinese government acknowledging the impact that factory farming was having on climate change and people's health within the country, and also a major statement to say that it wanted to actually see a reduction in meat consumption within the country. And this just last year, again from within China, the 5-year agricultural plan and the Chinese President Xi Jinping stating that China should look at plant-based, fermented and cell-cultured animal protein in addition to traditional food sources as a way to protect the environment and achieve sustainable development. This followed up this year by the Japanese government, the Japanese Prime Minister supporting a development of the industry for cell agriculture, which cultivates and grows meat and fish cells. So major political support coming for alternative protein production. And not far from here is the hub of the cultivated meat industry in Singapore. Singapore became the first country, 2020, to approve the sale of cultured meat products commercially, and has also given regulatory approval for a serum-free media to Eat Just, which again starts to help to address some of the major ethical challenges which are involved within the cultivated meat production industry. And we're here in Malaysia. Just this year, Cell Agritech has been given the go-ahead to set up the first cultivated meat production facility within Malaysia, which is hoping to be operational within the next couple of years. And I'm sure we can go around all of the Asian countries and we'll now see major progress being made within this area. And of course, let us look around the room here. You are the inspiration. This is the first in-person meeting of the Asia Farm Animal Day after a number of years of it being online. This would have never happened. I've been working within the Asian animal movement now for 22 years, and to think that we're going to have a group of over 250 people all in one room, all discussing farm animal welfare, is something for us all to celebrate and be inspired by. I want to just mention a few of those areas. I work within China and within Vietnam, and I'm pleased that we have Jeff Zhou with us here today, because Jeff is a major leader in this movement across Asia, but particularly within China. But other organizations as well that I'm aware of. I know there are lots of other organizations working within China, but there are likes of Global Food Partners, Compassion in World Farming, RSPCA International, World Animal Protection, which are leading the way in the country which produces more farmed animals than any other country, in terms of working with the producers to improve animal welfare, working with the agricultural universities to start to develop those standards, and working with the consumers to change people's eating habits. And the other country which I work within, in Vietnam, just this year, these organizations all coming together to form the Vietnam Farm Animal Alliance, collaborating for the better welfare of farmed animals, to hold a conference, not just of NGOs, but of people from the business sector, the government agricultural agencies, and the NGOs, all collaborating to look at what the challenges are within Vietnam and to come up with solutions to the problem. So real progress in Vietnam as well. And then I started talking about the fishes and the crustaceans, and I just wanted to mention the fact that over the last few years, we've seen these very sector-specific organizations developing as well. So I'm sure you're going to hear from the people which represent these organizations, and they will represent them much better than I will. But the shrimp welfare projects operating now in India and in Vietnam, and may well be operating in other Asian countries as well. The Fish Welfare Initiative in India and the Philippines, again, advocating specifically on behalf of those animals which are farmed in the greatest numbers. And then we've got the research, the likes of Harvard Law School, doing all of this research on consumer preferences, doing the research on people's perceptions of animal sentience, people's perception and understanding of animal emotions, and all of that information being fed to the NGOs to be able to carry out our public awareness programs. And then we've got the essential part of this jigsaw, the building of the animal advocate community, the Southeast Asian Farm Animal Welfare Fellowship being run by Welfare Matters, the International Farm Animal Welfare Fellowship being run in China, building up this community of people which can advocate on behalf of these animals. And then the Good Food Institute, Asia Pacific as well, bringing all of this science together on plant-based production, cell culture, fermented culture, bringing it all together with the industry and being able to present it to policymakers and to create that change that we need. So to conclude, we have the evidence of sentience. We have the evidence of sentience across the board, and it's just building with now more and more invertebrates being added to that list of animals which we know have sentient experiences. We are seeing increasing government support for the development and the adoption of alternative protein sources, particularly here within Asia. And we have this rapidly growing number of active and very effective NGOs, expert consultancies, and research institutions advocating on behalf of farmed animals here in Asia. Which leads me to conclude, we have all of you sharing your knowledge, your insights, your networking, learning, developing these essential collaborations. How could I miss you guys out right at the end? Of course I couldn't. You're the most important part of this jigsaw. Which does lead me to conclude then that we can end practices leading to animal suffering. We can change diets towards alternative protein consumption. And we can balance our food production with nature conservation. So let's get going. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's give one more round of applause, please. Thank you. Dave, Neale, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you everyone. As Dave mentioned, you are inspiring. You are here to help animals, and the outcome that we have been achieving is thanks to you and your work. And we hope that this will continue this way.